here in Kapa'a. My name is Kahu Kavika Jackson. I am the priest and pastor here at the church, and I am so thrilled and pleased to be able to introduce to you a continuation in our Makana Mele organ concert series with the Dr. Caroline Robinson. You'll hear a bit more of an introduction of her in a few moments. I just wanted to do a little housekeeping before we continue. The main matter is where the restrooms are, and the restrooms are over, there's this barn-like structure over there, the gym, and in the middle of the wall that faces us, you'll see the signed restrooms, and there are 2 doors there. So, just feel free, if you need a bio break, just feel free to go there. Other than that, I'm thrilled to introduce one of our church members who really has been the driving force behind not only this Makana Mele organ series, but even how we got this organ, this Rosales Opus 41 organ in the first place. He was the driving force behind the raising of the money for it, the construction, overseeing all of that, and now it's come to fruition, and we had the blessing for that 2 years ago. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Morris Weiss. Please come up.
Aloha. Look at all you fine people. Welcome to tonight's concert at All Saints Church. It's part of the Makana Mele concert series, which is now in its 3rd season, which is just hard for me to believe how the time has flown. Makana Mele means gift of music, and the concerts were conceived in part to showcase the new Wilcox Slaga Ohana organ, Rosales Opus 41, affectionately known to us here at the church as Stella, the Star of the Sea. This concert is sponsored by the American Guild of Organists Hawaii chapter as part of their yearly concert series, which has featured rising stars of the organ world since the first concert featuring Paul Jacobs in 2006. Working with the Hawaii AGO makes it possible for us to bring today's brightest young organ stars to Hawaii and Kauai. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to ask you to please silence your mobile devices if you haven't done so as not to disrupt the performance. Also, I would specifically like to thank Church Organs Hawaii for sponsoring Caroline's inter-island travel. And also a special shout out to those joining us via live stream. We are most pleased to have you join us remotely tonight. Know that you are as much a part of our ohana as those present with us physically, and we send you warm breezes of aloha from Kauai. Before we start the concert, I'd like to take a moment of your time prior to the artist introduction to ask you kindly to consider a donation if you haven't already done so. As you can imagine, bringing artists to Hawaii is a challenge financially. I'm personally gratified that All Saints Episcopal Church has made a commitment to sharing excellent music with others. I know I'm not the only one that feels this way, but it is through music that I feel most connected to God and creation. Order, chaos, harmony, breath, expansion, contraction. The rhythm of the soul of life can be found in music. The pipe organ is the pinnacle instrument, putting the control of thousands of pipes, thousands of sounds and moving parts under the command of one person. There has never been a more complex piece of musical creative genius than a pipe organ. The reason I mention this is I think sometimes we take for granted opportunities to hear the kind of synergy we will hear today between Caroline Robinson and the creative talents that created and built this instrument. Having this work of musical art on Kauai it is the first time in history that Kauai has had this possibility. So if you can, please make a generous donation to keep organ music alive on Kauai. Think of what you might pay for a concert event on Oahu and let that guide you. Donations for this concert should go directly to All Saints Church, either through the church website or by check or cash in person. Your program has a QR code on it on the back side that can take you directly to the donate button of the website if that's a way you would like to donate. If you are watching online, please navigate to the Makana Mele page found under the Arts menu on the main page and scroll down that page until you see a button that says Show Your Support. And you can donate there. The Makana Mele concert page is also where you will find Caroline's program. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce tonight's artist. You are in for a sonic wonderland experience tonight. I thought you might be also interested that Caroline has 2 connections to All Saints, realized after she was engaged to concertize here. She was Adam Pagin's first organ student. Many of you might remember Adam because he played the dedicatory recital here and also a concert last summer with Noah Smith, who is also his student. Caroline also worked for Peter Dubois at Third Presbyterian Church in Rochester, and Peter played here right after the pandemic allowed us to open. Caroline's list of accomplishments is impressive. She's been featured in recitals across Europe and the United States. Her playing has been broadcast on American public media's Pipe Dreams, and she has performed regularly at organist conventions. She is a laureate of the 2018 National Young Artist Competition in Organ Performance and holds first prize from the Albert Schweitzer Organ Festival from 2008 and the Westchester University Organ Competition in 2010. She is organist and associate choir master at the Cathedral of St. Philip in Atlanta and an active continuo player with early music ensembles. Dr. Robinson earned degrees from Curtis Institute of Music and the Eastman School of Music. And with the aid of a Fulbright scholarship, she studied at the Conservatory in Toulouse. Please put your hands together with me and give a big aloha to Caroline.
Thank you so much for being here. It is such a pleasure to be here at All Saints, and it's actually my first time in Hawaii, so mahalo for the wonderful welcome. Thank you. The piece you just heard lives up to its name. Giacoso means joyfully or joyful, and I definitely think that piece is very joyful. We're going to move across the English Channel now to France to hear two movements from Louis Viern's Second Symphony for organ. Now, Louis Vierne was the organist titulaire, which means the primary organist at Notre-Dame de Paris. I'm sure you've heard of that before, for much of his career. And the year that he was appointed to that position was 1901, and he must have wanted to take a big vacation to celebrate that appointment, and he did. He went to the beach, so it's fitting to play these pieces here. And he composed that symphony while he was on this beach vacation. The two movements that you will hear tonight are very different. The first one, the chorale, is very brooding and, well, let me just tell you, it has two themes. The first theme is prayerful and plaintive. It's peaceful, but it still has a somber quality to it. And then the second theme, it'll be clear when the second theme happens, is more roiling and brooding. It's almost like if you're out on a boat and the wind kicks up and yeah, you're just kind of being tousled around. So those two themes are they're in conflict. And I'll let you decide who wins at the end of that movement. But I would say it's a happy ending. And then after that, the scherzo is, the word scherzo, does anybody know what it means? Anybody? You can shout it out. Yes, you win a prize of a thumbs up. So scherzo means joke, and there's no question why Louis Vierne wrote the music he did to go with the name joke. It's very impish. Do you have fireflies here? No. Okay. Well, I like to think of fireflies when I'm playing this scherzo by Vierne. So those are the two movements. He dedicated this symphony to Charles Mutin, who's the organ builder who continued the very important tradition of Artistide Cavaillé-Coll, who was the most important French organ builder of the 19th century, hands down. So he was paying tribute to the person who helped continue that tradition into the 20th century. So two movements from Louis Vierne's Symphony No. 2. Now, if you like jazz, I have something for you. I'm going to play 2 arrangements of American folk hymns by British composer George Shearing, and he lived for much of the 20th century into the 21st century. A fun fact, he was blind as well as Vierne, and I just am so amazed that these composers can write such beautiful, intricate music without even being able to see an instrument so complicated as the organ. So, George Shearing was the youngest of 9, and so he didn't have a lot just given to him in life. So he actually learned the piano and learned the craft of jazz improvisation playing in bands and in clubs. And he emigrated to the United States during World War II, and he immediately was just a hit on the scene. In fact, he was a musician in New York City, and a certain author by the name of Jack Kerouac was sitting listening to him one day and actually mentions him in his famous novel On the Road. So if you have that on your bookshelf, you can go look for the mention of George Shearing. George Shearing was not himself that much of an organist, so he collaborated with the American organist Dale Wood to adapt these arrangements for the organ. So maybe you know these hymns. I didn't grow up singing them, but I would love to hear from you after the concert if you do know them. So 2 American folk hymn arrangements by George Shearing. want to tell you, this church and the island of Kauai is so lucky to have such a beautiful organ that can express so much. It's so economical. There aren't that many stops, but it has so many options. It's built really ingeniously. So thank you so much to Morris and everybody who helped make that happen. Okay, the next piece on the program is the audience participation component, so I hope you're ready to watch and listen. Johann Sebastian Bach wrote this preludium. It has different names: toccata, preludium, fugue, preludium. It's kind of in the North German style, so it has multiple sections. The first section, I'm just going to tell you what they are, and then I'll fill you in on your assignment. The first section is an expository section. It sets out the key. You hear it in scales and arpeggios and even a couple big pedal solos. So we're kind of firmly set in the key. And then the next section is a fugue. And a fugue is a kind of imitative piece that uses one subject that propels the whole piece forward. Then there's another kind of freer section, and it's lots of really rapid scales, and the pedal responds with punctuated notes. And then there's a second fugue. The first fugue is in what we would call duple meter, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. The second fugue is in triple meter, dum, bum, 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 bum. So really I want you to feel the beat for those two fugues. The second one really reminds me of if everybody in the town square got together for a big dance in the town hall, and maybe there's beer involved and stuff. Everybody's having a great time. But your assignment is for the first fugue, that one in duple meter. So I'm going to play you the subject of the fugue. A fugue has three components: a subject, a counter subject, which always it's best friends with the subject. You don't hear the counter subject without the subject. And then episodes, which are times in the music where the subject is not present. So you're listening for the subject. Here is the subject. Okay, now sing it back. I'm just kidding. You don't have to do that. I want you to count how many times you hear that subject in the pedal. Now, I play the pedals with my feet, and the pedal doesn't play very much at all in that fugue. So it will be obvious when the pedal's playing, and I will give you a hint. The subject happens between 1 and 5 times. It's more than 1 and less than 5. And if you don't get it, it's okay. But we will have a little survey after. So this is one of my favorite pieces by Bach. It is just so much fun. So I hope you really enjoy it. Don't stress out about the assignment. Here's the Prelude Fugue in E major. So for the moment of truth, close your eyes. And I told you it was more than 1 and fewer than 5. So raise your hand if you heard 2. Raise your hand if you heard 3. Raise your hand if you heard 4. Oh, a lot of, okay, you can open your eyes. Yeah, it was actually 3. But great job, everybody. I'm so impressed, and that was really fun. So we should do that again sometime. I'm not usually this cheesy, but you guys are really fun, so thank you. What's next? So the next 3 pieces on the program, I kind of think of as a set. If you like quieter music, more contemplative music, this is for you. But they're all very different, all 3 of these pieces. So I'll talk about them, and I'll kind of stay on the bench in between. The first piece is by French composer Jeanne de Massieu. She lived for the, sort of middle part of the 20th century, and she was a student of Marcel Dupré, who is another very important French organist. She had an amazing work ethic. She played hundreds of concerts. She practiced for 25 hours a day. She was a really hard worker, but she didn't leave that much organ music for us, partially because she died at such a young age. Some pieces that are beloved by organists that she wrote are the 12 chorale preludes on Gregorian chant, and that is where that's where the piece that I'll play in just a moment comes from. It's based on the Lenten Gregorian chant, Attende Domine, which translates to Hear Us, O Mighty Lord. So I'll just play the beginning of that chant for you, and it's appropriate because we are in the season of Lent at this time. So here's how it goes. So try and listen for that when you are listening to this piece. It also happens in canon, so it happens in the hands and then in the feet at different times at the very end. So you'll notice almost over when you hear that. The next piece is by another French composer, Jean-Louis Florence, who was really interesting because he had a passion for other cultures, and he traveled to Africa, he traveled to Israel. He was all over the world studying different kinds of music, and he especially loved Ethiopian music. And he wrote Lode in the 1980s, which is a piece kind of based on the Ethiopian liturgy. The movement I will play tonight is right in the middle of that 7-movement work, Chant des Fleurs, and it's kind of thought of as a reprise from an otherwise very intense piece. And I won't say too much about it other than it's supposed to be, he wrote it actually before the rest of the work when he was sitting on a Boeing 737 airplane, and he was experiencing the vibrations of the engine all around him. And so he basically recreated that with the organ. And if you want afterwards, I can show you how he does that. I won't demonstrate that right now. But it's just a really sublime experience. So just sit back and let the sound roll over you. And then the third piece in the set is the beautiful Air by Florence Price. She lived in Chicago for most of her career and wrote so much music, and she's really experiencing a renaissance right now. I'm really happy about that. This is the just very beautiful slow movement from her suite for organ, and all I'll say about it is that if it were a work of art, it would be impressionist, painted with lots of beautiful pastels. So please enjoy the next 3 pieces on the program. to everybody for coming out tonight. It's been such a pleasure having you, and I really look forward to speaking to everybody after the concert. So be sure to come up and say hello, and I'd love to answer any questions you have and get to know you a little bit. Thank you again to Morris and to Muriel and Kahu and to Joe and Tracy, to everybody I've met, all the new friends I've made. And also I just want to give a shout out to my parents who are here and our wonderful family friends, the yours. So happy that they could make it all the way from Greenville, South Carolina tonight. The next and final set of pieces I will play tonight are by American composer Calvin Hampton, who is based in New York City, and he composed all sorts of music. He was a rock musician, he knew jazz, he also played classical organ and had a church job, and so he really knew a lot of different worlds and spheres in a time where there was a lot happening in New York City. He was asked to write a choral and organ work for the dedication of the new organ at Park Avenue Christian Church in New York City. He didn't want to do that, and he decided to instead write these 5 dances for organ based on the 5 easy pieces for piano duet by Igor Stravinsky. So a little different than maybe the choral anthem that the people who commissioned it were imagining. The 5 pieces each feature an ostinato, and an ostinato is a kind of repeating rhythmic and motivic figure. So you'll definitely notice the repeating motives that happen throughout each of the movements. They're all very different. I don't know exactly what he had in mind when he titled the first and the last one, but the second one is very much, you feel like you're at the ballet. So I'll leave it to your imagination what Calvin Hampton had in mind with the primitives and everyone dance. I just want to say I really love playing more contemporary music, even though this piece was premiered 40 years ago now, because you end up having connections to it. So actually my teacher, David Higgs from Eastman, premiered these works in New York City, and then the fabulous Cherry Rhodes, who teaches at UCLA, USC, University of Southern California. She actually did the second premiere on the West Coast with a modified version that is now the more commonly used version. So it's just great to have these connections to this music even after the composer is no longer with us. Thank you again, and please enjoy Calvin Hampton.